close to a deal? Have Ottawa and Alberta agreed on a pipeline? This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Peace in our time. For many months now, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has been sounding optimistic that she could convince the Liberals in Ottawa to come around to her way of thinking. And according to a news report today, she may have done just that. The Globe and Mail is reporting Prime Minister Carney is about to close a deal with the Smith government that could eventually see another oil pipeline to the West Coast. No sources are named in the story. The account is based on two federal insiders. But Michael Sabia is said to have been a key player in all of this. He's been a mover and shaker in Ottawa for decades. These days, he's the clerk of the Privy Council, but in the past, he's been the CEO of Hydro-Quebec, the CEO of BCE, and the CEO of the massive Quebec pension fund, The Case. Speaking at a news conference just yesterday, where she was announcing her government's intention to use the notwithstanding clause for three bills about gender identity issues, Premier Smith was asked if she thinks the Carney government is serious about playing ball with Alberta.
And I said, we need to show Albertans that the country works again. And the way you show Albertans that the country works again is that you ensure that their product isn't landlocked and that there aren't unfair rules that are preventing investment. So the Prime Minister and I have had a chance to speak about that several times, which is why we engaged in the discussions that we've had in the first place to find a way to come to terms on the 9 bad laws that have been passed by a former government and where we think we need to go in this new environment. So yes, I think the Prime Minister fully understands and has the same sense of urgency that I do. Remember, he was a Bank of England governor during Brexit, and that was a vote that was to remain in the European Union. But emotion ended up, I think, overtaking the conversation, and it went very different than anybody anticipated. So I'm quite sure he doesn't want to see a repeat of that any more than I do.
According to today's report, the Carney government is willing to lift some of the restrictions of the West Coast oil tanker ban. Carney government is also thinking of lowering or even scrapping the oil and gas emissions cap. There could be changes to the industrial carbon tax system to allow for the scaling up of carbon capture and storage. Premier Smith had hoped to have a breakthrough with the Liberals by the Grey Cup. That was this past Sunday. Yesterday, she suggested the Prime Minister is probably getting pushback from members of his own Liberal caucus in Ottawa.
Well, I think we have to be realistic that there are certain members of his caucus and cabinet who are going to have to come to terms with doing a 180 on some of the bad laws that they supported and voted for over the past 10 years. And that is possible. Politicians have been known when they realize that they've made an error, that they have to go in a different direction. And I think that that's what the last election was about. It was about the Liberal Party realizing they'd made an error and they needed to start talking about becoming a strong economy that's an energy superpower. So it may well be that there are some members of his caucus who are not fully on board with that new vision, but I will know in a matter of days whether or not they're influential enough to change the direction that I think that the Prime Minister and I want to go. I think we both are very keen to get a memorandum of understanding, but we'll know in a few more days.
With the federal budget votes now in the rearview mirror and with 2 lists released on projects in the national interest, Dwayne Brad, a political scientist from Mount Royal University in Calgary, says getting a deal done between Ottawa and Alberta is high on the Prime Minister's to-do list.
I think the wide-ranging MOU between the Alberta government and the federal government over energy laws and pipeline access. This was supposed to have been done before the Grey Cup, and in fact, both Carney and Smith at various times even talked about having a pipeline as one of the tranches to the Major Projects Office before the Grey Cup. Neither of those has happened. Both remain optimistic, but there's a lot of details in there. Premier Smith has outlined what she keeps calling the 9 bad bills and gave Carney 6 months to deal with them. He has dealt with some of them, whether that is the emissions cap in the oil sands, the delay around electric vehicle mandates, the greenwashing bill around energy companies, but nothing on pipelines. There is no proponent. The Alberta government is claiming they're the proponent, but no private sector interest. But this is a really big issue here in the province to have some sort of agreement.
The Prime Minister isn't in the country right now. Mark Carney flew to the United Arab Emirates last night. After that, he's scheduled to attend the G20 summit in South Africa. He's not expected to return to Canada until next Monday. Speaking recently about his government's plan for major projects and the lack of an oil pipeline, he suggested progress is being made, but that it's hard to get everyone on the same page.
We are, and I personally, a big believer in cooperative federalism. The federal government has a role, the provinces have a role, First Nations, Indigenous peoples more broadly with the territories have central roles. We need to talk to each other. We need to understand each other's perspectives. We need to see where we can cooperate and build things. We need to acknowledge where we can't and not move forward. Part of what we're doing, and I'm very encouraged by the progress that's being made in BC, in Alberta, and yes, there are differences of opinion about certain things, but we'll continue to have those discussions, is that it is showing the scale of opportunity and ambition in this country, not just for today, but for future generations. And it's that process that will continue to bring us progress.
Word that there could be another oil pipeline from Alberta to British Columbia might come as breaking news to the Premier of British Columbia. Just days ago, Premier Eby called the idea a fantasy.
Because there is no route, there is no proponent, there is no project. It is a figment of a communication person's mind in Alberta, and it has no connection to real investment in our country or in our province. If it goes ahead, it will only be because it is fully funded by taxpayers to the tune of $40 to $50 billion. And we already have a publicly owned pipeline that is not operating at capacity and could take on significant additional capacity.
There's no such thing as a sure thing, and an oil pipeline from Alberta to BC is still far from a sure thing. According to today's report, the project would need a private company to build it at its own expense. And it would need the approval of coastal Indigenous communities, but not necessarily the approval of the BC government. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
The U.S. Congress is one step closer to forcing the release of the so-called Epstein files. The U.S. Senate passed a bill today. It forces the U.S. Justice Department to publicly release all of its files on the convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. That comes one day after Republican and Democrat senators agreed to pass a bill as soon as it was sent over from the U.S. House of Representatives, which passed legislation by a vote of 427 to 1. And now U.S. President Donald Trump says he'll sign it into law. Speaking in the Oval Office, Trump said he never had anything to do with Epstein.
Here's what I want. We have nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. You look at this Reid Hoffman, you look at Larry Summers, Bill Clinton, they went to his island all the time, and many others. They're all Democrats. All I want is I want for people to recognize a great job that I've done on pricing, on affordability, because we brought prices way down, but they're going way lower, on energy, on ending 8 wars and another one coming pretty soon, I believe. We've done a great job. And I hate to see that deflect from the great job we've done. So I'm all for it. You know, we've already given 50,000 pages. You do know that. Unfortunately, like with the Kennedy situation, with the Martin Luther King situation, not to put Jeffrey Epstein in the same category, but no matter what we give, it's never enough. You know, with Kennedy, we gave everything and it wasn't enough. With Martin Luther King, we gave everything and it's never enough. We've already given, I believe the number is 50,000 pages. 50,000 pages. And it's just a Russia hoax as it pertains to the Republicans.
Trump would go on to claim he wouldn't be shocked if these files cause problems for other people, mostly Democrats.
I believe that some of the people that we mentioned are being looked at very seriously for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, but they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all. And we'll see what happens. What I just don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party, including the fact that the Democrats are totally blamed for the shutdown. You know, they cost our country hundreds of billions of dollars with that, at a lot of inconvenience. So I'm for I don't. They can do whatever they want. We'll give them everything. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it. But don't talk about it too much, because honestly, I don't want to take it away from us. It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends.
Despite the near unanimous vote in the House of Representatives on the release of the Epstein files, Democrats and Republicans still went at each other. Jim Jordan is a Republican member from Ohio who said this is just the latest attempt by Democrats to go after President Trump because he's doing such a great job.
Americans see through it all, and frankly, it's actually kind of sad. This obsession, this syndrome, this mindset that says we got to go after President Trump no matter what that they have. And when I think about it, I think it's because President Trump and Republicans have accomplished so much that they told the voters they were going to accomplish in the 2024 election. We're actually doing what we said we were going to do. President Trump said he was going to cut taxes, and he did. President Trump said he would secure the border, and he did. President Trump said he'd get men out of women's sports, and he did. President Trump said he would make sure Iran doesn't have nuclear capability, and he did. And he said he would get the hostages out of Gaza back into Israel, and he did. All in 9 months. So I don't know what causes this mindset, this syndrome that the left has, but I know one thing. It is real.
But Democrats fired back, saying Trump's been trying to perpetrate a cover-up, and now he's lost the fight.
It is time to end this White House cover-up now. Now, we know that Donald Trump has tried everything to kill our Jeffrey Epstein investigation, and he's failed. And now he's panicking. He's about to lose his Epstein vote to force the Department of Justice to release the files. And let's be crystal clear. Trump has the power to release the files today. He does not even need a vote. And he continues to defy the subpoena of the Oversight Committee to release all the files. What is Donald Trump hiding? What is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, hiding? Why won't they release the Epstein files right now? And he must explain to the public why he moved sex trafficker and monster Ghislaine Maxwell to a cushy, low-security prison after her interview with Trump's personal lawyer. He should declare, and every Republican should say, that she does not deserve a pardon or a commutation.
One of the people caught up in the Epstein files now is Larry Summers. He was former President Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary. He was former President Barack Obama's National Economic Council Director, and he used to be president of Harvard University. He has now resigned from the board of OpenAI because of emails between him and Epstein. Speaking on Fox News today was Mark Wayne Mullen, a Republican senator from Oklahoma, who suggested Mr. Summers can run, but he can't hide.
Summers can try to retire from public life. The truth is, if he did something criminal, knowing it, and he was covering up for Epstein, then he needs to be prosecuted. So you can try to retire and say, I'm getting away from it. You can't. The question needs to come up is, what was Bill Clinton doing on the plane 26 times? Why did Epstein refer to himself as Summers' wingman? What was the close relationship there? You're not a wingman in a situation like that you don't know what's going on the plane and on the private island. And then for him to be able to go ahead and join this new Russian gate, which is the Epstein gate, I guess you want to call it, this complete hoax that somehow President Trump was involved in, when at the same time it was the Democrats that's drawing this story out and trying to make it a big deal that it's not. I can't wait. I really can't wait until this absolutely blows up in the face of the Democrats once again and shows the hypocrisy that they have.
So the bill passed today by the U.S. Senate forces the release within 30 days of all files and communications related to Epstein, as well as any information about the investigation into his death. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
If you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, we have a great new mobile app that will help you hear our show when you want to. You can listen live. You can listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R. And it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports, and you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R. And Now You Know with Rob Snow is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you watch financial markets today, all the action is probably going to come after the close of trading in both New York and Toronto at 4 o'clock Eastern time, because everyone's waiting to see the financial results from NVIDIA, the big chip maker that is so heavily involved in the AI economy. It's reporting its earnings for the last quarter after the close of trading today. It has been up most recently, and at one point it briefly topped as a market capitalization $5 trillion US in value. So it's the biggest stock on Wall Street, and that means that its movements, one way or another, carry more weight in the S&P 500 than any other stock. So depending on what NVIDIA says and what outlook it offers today, that will greatly determine what's going to happen with the markets after the close of trading, and maybe even for the opening bell tomorrow. So everything is kind of on hold right now, just modest gains, modest losses, both ways. The TSX is up slightly right now. It's up 93 points. The S&P 500 is up less than 10 points. The Dow is down slightly, but not by much, just off by 77 points right now. Canadian dollar is at 71.08 cents US. Oil prices below $60 a barrel right now, 59.16 US a barrel. The big news is, and I hate to break it to you, Curtis, your vast portfolio of cryptocurrency is taking a bit of a beating now, with Bitcoin down another 4% today. Bitcoin in US dollars is now back below 90,000 US dollars. It's down more than $3,500 today, $89,371 US for one darn Bitcoin. But it had been well above $100,000 for quite some time, so that's quite a sell-off. Our Newsday panel coming up right after the news here on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow
Returns on News Radio.
And it's time for our Wednesday Newsday political panel. The scribes are here, or what someone called the ink-stained wretches. You can read Tasha Kheriddin in the National Post. How are you, Tasha?
I'm rubbing the ink off my fingers as you speak there.
Good. I didn't say it. Somebody else did a long time ago. Brian Lilley probably wears it as a badge of honor. Brian Lilley with the Toronto Sun. How are you?
I'm well. I will point out that both Tasha and I are recovering radio people as well. We both hosted shows.
True.
And we've got the scars to show it.
Yeah. Let's begin with what both of you have been writing about recently. Brian, you think it would be a mistake because, there's a full court press on from the Swedes. Even the royal couple is here. The King and Queen of Sweden are here trying to woo Canada into buying the Saab fighter jet instead of the F-35. You think that would be a mistake. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a little bit weird to see a royal family act as the IKEA sales rep for building fighter jets with an Allen key at a plant in Montreal or Toronto, because that's what we'd be doing. We'd be assembling them. We wouldn't be manufacturing them. We wouldn't be making the parts. We'd just be assembling them here. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, this Saab is claiming that they could partner with Bombardier and create 10,000 jobs. I'm going to say that that is an outright fabrication. I mean, it'd be unparliamentary to call it a lie, though accurate. So they're claiming 10,000 jobs to build the fighter jets that we need. I don't know how many fighter jets we're going to buy, but it's not enough to create 10,000 jobs. And I base that off of Saab's own numbers that they put out for how many people are employed at the Brazilian facility that is making the Saab Gripen in partnership with Embraer. Now, Rob, you've covered business a long time. You know that Embraer used to be a competitor with Bombardier. I'd say they're much bigger than Bombardier now in the aerospace industry. And the co-facility that they have employs 60 people directly to build the Gripen, and 200 overall are associated with it. So you've got 60 directly and then another 140 associated with it. And they're buying about 60 some odd jets. So how are we going to get to 10,000? How many jets are we going to build in Canada? Or are we talking about every worker that shows up at a Tim Hortons to serve the guys that are on the line? It doesn't make sense. Now, meanwhile, we've got between 2,500 and 3,000 people who are building parts for the F-35. Every single F-35 that comes off the line, not just the ones that we buy, but every
not
F-35.
Just the Canadian ones. Yeah, just not just the Canadian ones, the entire fleet worldwide, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's about $3.2 million Canadian worth of parts that are built in this country that go into those jets. There's already been 1,200 built. There's a backlog of 2,000. We can add 48 more from the Saudis yesterday after they visited Donald Trump at the White House. Why would we give up that for the promise of 10,000 jobs that doesn't mathematically make sense by Saab's own numbers? For a jet, for a jet that started flying before I graduated high school. It started flying in 1988.
It was a great year, 1988. I remember it well. Tasha.
You sound like Kid Rock suddenly.
Yeah, Tasha. I'm just sick of doing this dance. It's been 15 years of this. 15 years ago, Prime Minister Harper said we were going with the F-35. Mr. Trudeau comes along. Oh, not so fast. Then circles back. Okay, maybe we will buy the F-35. And now Mr. Carney comes along. Well, maybe we won't. I just want them to buy some jets, for crying out loud. What do you think?
Well, I think we all did. The problem is I hear what Brian's saying. I'm not sure about the jobs numbers and how real that is. I think Carney's using that as an explanation because his whole, nation building, national project strategy is predicated on building things in Canada and creating jobs here by spending federal dollars. The two jets are rather different. The F-35 is it's more widely used. It is basically a much more combat-ready kind of jet, whereas the Gripen is known for flying in difficult, cold environments like ours. It's probably why the Swedes, designed it that way. So useful for the Arctic. It's useful. It's cheaper. But here's the thing. It's also, I think, because of Donald Trump, there's now this issue about the strategic piece of the F-35 and components and codes that are held by the Americans. That's been talked about for quite a while. So the idea there is that the F-35, we agreed to it, great. Is it now a problem because Washington can hold up these jets or control, in a sense, some of the capabilities of these jets by not giving us the codes or controlling the codes? That's a kind of scary thing. So I think there's a security piece as well about going to the Gripen. Plus, we know that Mark Carney loves the Europeans. I think he'd move there if he could. Oh, wait, he did, and then he came home. But it's true. I think that he thinks that way, right? So that's why we're having the Swedish royal family here with the Allen key visiting.
But the part of the thing about the Gripen is that some of the most advanced parts of the technology are also subject to American decision making. The Americans decide whether the most advanced parts of the Gripen, which did not exist in 1988, can go forward because it's American technology. It's still not as good as the F-35, but they still have that ability. Look, the idea that the Americans are going to cut us off suddenly, only if we attack them. So this is a bit of elbows up mentality that doesn't quite meet reality.
Okay. All right. Look, when we come back, writing in the National Post, Tasha said the way the budget drama was handled by the Conservatives has left many Conservatives shaking their heads. I want to know more about that when we return. Our Newsday panel on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with Tasha Kheriddin, who writes for the National Post, Brian Lilley for the Toronto Sun. In the National Post on the budget drama, you say that the way the budget drama was handled has left many Conservatives shaking their heads. What are they shaking their heads about, Tasha?
Well, they're shaking their heads at the way the party's being managed. And this is something I've been saying for a long time. It's not about what the policies are. It's not about the specific critiques of the government. It's the way the party is handled and the way things are communicated, and that goes straight to the top, and the leadership and the style. So what we saw in the budget was, the Chris D'Entremont fleeing across the aisle, and then Matt Genereux mysteriously resigning, but only in the spring after speculation he might cross the floor, and then he didn't. And all this, and then in the midst of it, Poilievre did not present a motion to amend the budget as he should have in his speech, so seemed a bit flustered. All of this is giving a sort of Keystone Cops, but a very draconian Keystone Cops vibe to the party. People feel distinctly were upset by the defection, but the way then afterwards people were being stomped on, and, it's like, the threats and the intimidation, to put it mildly. One person described it as being like, in the Sopranos, right? And this is a thing that doesn't bode well for the party, because you think of previous leaders who held their caucus together by loyalty, by, I'd say, goodwill, like Brian Mulroney. Those caucuses functioned well. Even Stephen Harper, he didn't act this way with his caucus. There was a lot of central control, but not like this. And so you don't rouse the troops by beating them over the head with a stick. And that's a sense that a lot of people have. So while they're not going to leave or necessarily challenge Poilievre openly, in the background, you have a lot of people feeling uncomfortable. And let's face it, the Conservatives do have a mechanism to get rid of their leader through caucus. Right? They are the only party actually that has this. So he might get a great vote for the membership in January, but caucus isn't happy, and he should be conscious of that, because it does trickle down to voters and the perception they have of him as a leader.
What do you think, Brian? Are you hearing the same kind of stuff?
Listening to Tasha talk, it reminded me of the radio station I worked at in Montreal before I moved to Ottawa to work with you, Rob. The management motto seemed to be, beatings will continue until morale improves. That's never a good way to run things. Look, Chris D'Entremont did not cross the floor over an ideological thing. I know that's I'm just a poor red Tory. Oh, this is horrible. No, he left because he didn't get the speaker's role and he didn't like Pierre Poilievre. But, he also split from the Nova Scotia PC party because he didn't like moderate Tim Houston and decided to run for Andrew Scheer. So D'Entremont's got his own things. Not sure what's going on with Matt Genereux, but did he meet with Mark Carney? Did he not? Somebody's lying. It's either the people telling the Toronto Star that he did meet with them, or Genereux lying to the party brass who insists he didn't. But you don't go to the champagne room to talk about a dance. You go there for the dance. So if he did go, he was going to cross the floor. As for what comes next, I'm not sure. Poilievre, as Tasha says, he could easily win the leadership review with the base because the base loves him. but he has to get on top of caucus management, and he needs to be able to bring people in with the carrot rather than just the stick. Sometimes you need the stick. Every leader will tell you that, and any leader worth their salt will use the stick when they need to, but it can't be the go-to. But the whole thing of Andrew Scheer and Scott Reed hiding behind the curtain and then only coming down to vote after the fact, that's comical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Look, let me just ask you, I want to talk a little bit more in depth in the few minutes that we have after the news about Bob Fife's reporting today on a possible, what I call a peace deal between Alberta and Ottawa. But let me ask you this. We have a developing scandal in Quebec politics, and nobody does scandal like Quebec politics. Pablo Rodriguez, former Liberal MP in Ottawa, is now the leader of the Quebec Liberal Party, and his party has been swept up in a cash for voting scandal that people were paid $100 to vote for Pablo Rodriguez in the Liberal Party leadership race in Quebec. And one of the texts, the Journal de Montréal has the texts going back and forth. And one of the texts says, I'm translating here, all that's left is the voting process, and they all get a brownie for voting. And a brownie is apparently supposed to mean $100. If you vote for Pablo Rodriguez, you'll get $100. Now, I don't know, am I too young or am I too old? Am I too young or am I too old that a brownie, $100 bill is a brownie? Have you ever heard a $100 bill being called a brownie? Tasha, have you ever heard that term?
No,
I
was thinking of pot. Like I said, pot, brownie. I'll have a brownie, wink,
yeah,
wink.
I was thinking.
But no, I did not know it had a monetary value. This scandal is making waves at a really bad time for Rodriguez because right now, both the Parti Québécois and the Liberals are ahead of the governing Coalition Avenir Québec. Right. A lot of people are talking about a showdown, a federalist separatist showdown next election, the CAQ left in the dust. This is not a good thing for him to have this happen. The election's next October, but still, it's very bad at this moment for Rodriguez. Yeah.
Did you know that a $100 bill is also called a brownie? I never heard that before, Brian.
Okay, so you're translating from French, and I am not bilingual. Tasha is. I lived and worked in Montreal. I could not claim to be bilingual, so never heard it as a brownie in English or French, but I guess it could work. But, Tasha's right. This comes at a horrible time for those of us that want a federalist option, whether it's the CAQ or the Quebec Liberals. This comes at a really bad time because this is going to help the PQ, the separatists get in, and the current PQ leader is pretty savvy and kind of charismatic, and this could turn out really badly. Pablo Rodriguez was the Liberal great hope, and this is definitely going to hurt him.
Yeah, a brownie, by the way, in French, the bill is $100. It's brown. That's partly why they call it a brownie.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay. Be right back.
Brownie. Yeah.
Okay. Be right back. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Not a lot of time, maybe only 3 minutes left with Brian Lilley and Tasha Kheriddin today. Brian, are Alberta and Ottawa about to kiss and make up? What do you think?
Hey, I've been talking to Premier Smith's office, and they keep saying that things are headed in a positive direction. What we saw in the Globe and Mail today, if I was an Albertan, would make me happy, because it seems to be give us everything we want, and we might let you open the door a crack. So I'm not really sure. Does this live up to what Premier Smith has been hoping for? They've been very positive towards the Carney government. Will they continue to be after this? We'll have to wait and see.
What do you think, Tasha?
Yeah, I've been trying to confirm these sources this morning as well, and not getting anyone saying absolutely yay or nay. It is, again, as Brian said, positive direction. I guess nobody wants to go on the record with it because the convention in Alberta is this weekend of Smith's party, and the sense is that she wants to they're holding this to their vest. If they get a deal or an MOU before then, it'd be a great coup for her to announce. I think Globe and Mail would have gone with the story if they didn't have a couple of strong sources on it. Obviously, they can't, but I haven't been able to confirm it either.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to see a pipeline, though, if Premier Eby is opposed, Tasha? Is that possible?
Well, I think there's been a lot of sense if we don't get some kind of pipeline deal, you're going to get a lot of Western revolt. And look, the referendum that could be happening in the spring would be fed by that directly. I think the big sticking point is that tanker traffic on the West Coast, and they'd have to lift the moratorium, to which Eby is categorically opposed. I'm not sure how Carney gets around that, but that's the thing that, federal jurisdiction, he could do it, except it would have big implications for BC. Yeah.
What do you think, Brian, in 30 seconds or less?
Well, Carney has delivered a couple of solid wins to Eby, just ahead of his own, issues. So he can lean on Eby and say, look, I gave you this. You're going to shut up now and let me move forward with what I need to do. If Carney can do that, we'll see. This is a guy who went into a meeting with the oil and gas industry a little while ago and said, I can't give you what you want. I have a caucus to manage, even though they'd all be unemployed if it weren't for him.
Okay. All right. We'll wrap it up there. Great to hear from both of you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob. Bye.
Speak soon. Yeah. Bye-bye. Tasha Kheriddin. Read her in the National Post and Brian Lilley in the Toronto Sun. And I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback is coming up next here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Our topic for today, the living wage. The living wage. There have been lots of news stories recently about this issue, a living wage. So we want to ask you some questions about it today. Back in the summer, August, new numbers were released about Nova Scotia, what a living wage these days would be in Nova Scotia. The numbers came from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, which is a left-wing think tank. It said the living wage for someone living in Halifax is now $29.40 an hour. $29.40 an hour. Lower for people who don't live in the city of Halifax, like $27.20 in the Annapolis Valley, $24.50 for someone living on Cape Breton Island, and $26.60 for people living down Yarmouth Way. But in Halifax, $29.40 an hour. It's based on a 35-hour work week, about $53,000 a year. Those were some of the Nova Scotia numbers. I should say all of these numbers are after taxes. All of these numbers include benefits that Canadians might get paid by the government, and then taxes paid to the government, income taxes and the like. In Ontario, we've had numbers released by a group called the Ontario Living Wage Network. And in places like Kitchener and Waterloo, the living wage is calculated to be $23 an hour, $27.20 in the Greater Toronto area, but $23 an hour for our listeners in Kitchener. Again, based on a 35-hour work week, you're looking at about $42,000 a year, again, after tax. And in recent days, we've seen new living wage numbers released for the province of Alberta, municipalities all across Alberta, and they come from the Alberta Living Wage Network. In Calgary, $26.50 an hour. Airdrie, $29 an hour. Lethbridge, $22.30 an hour. $23.40 an hour in High River, and $22.30 an hour in Edmonton. But you take a look at that Calgary number, $26.50 an hour. It's kind of in the middle of the Alberta numbers. $26.50 an hour, 35-hour work week. It's about $48,000 a year. Living wage, $26.50 an hour after tax. So from east to west, Halifax to Calgary, with a stop in southern Ontario in between. The living wage anywhere from $29.40 an hour in Halifax, $23 an hour in Kitchener, $26.50 in Calgary. The range on an annual basis, 35 hours a week, 42,000 on the low side, 53,000 on the high side after tax, and after getting any money that you're entitled to from the government, child care payments, GST rebates, whatever. 42,000 to 53,000 a year. What we want to know is this. If that's what you get in the living wage, $23 an hour on the low side, $29 an hour on the high side, what kind of life are you living? What kind of life are you living? Would you say you're living comfortably on that kind of income? 42 to 53 grand a year after tax? And after any benefits you get from the government? 42 to 53,000? Would you consider that to be a middle class kind of income? Are you living a middle class kind of life? Not quite middle class? Just outside the middle class? Far from the middle class? Paycheck to paycheck kind of income? Barely getting by kind of income? What would you say? Just what would you say? How would you describe the life someone can live on that kind of income? After tax income, 42 to 53,000 a year. That's a family of four. 2 adults, 35 years old, 2 children, 1 7-year-old and 1 3-year-old, who both need childcare. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. What goes into these calculations? We wanted to know. The information is right there. You can read it for yourself. The groups that assemble these numbers say the living wage is supposed to reflect what people need to earn working full-time to cover basic expenses and participate in the community. Cover basic expenses, participate in the community, and have a modest standard of living. So, for example, in Calgary, family of 4 on the list: food, clothing, footwear, shelter, transportation, childcare, healthcare, tuition, contingency fund, and other. And when you add it all up, it says for this fictional family of 4, you add up all the costs for all of that: food, clothing, footwear, shelter, transportation, childcare, healthcare, tuition, contingency fund, and other. It's almost $90,000 a year in annual living expenses. Does that sound right to you? Is that what your household is spending on living expenses in a year? Almost $90,000 a year? Almost $90,000 a year? $16,000 for food? $26,000 for shelter? $10,000 for transportation? $13,000 for childcare? Things like that. It also includes, as I say, government benefits, Canada Child Benefit, dental plan, if you get a carbon rebate, a subsidy for childcare from the Alberta government. And then it subtracts all the taxes, contributions, and premiums: federal income tax, provincial income tax, CPP contributions, EI premiums. So you do the expenses, calculate the benefits, add up all the taxes. Works out to, at least in Calgary, $26.50 an hour. In Halifax, $29.40 an hour. In Kitchener, $23 an hour. But what kind of life are people living? Comfortable? Comfortable? Middle class? Not quite middle class? Or paycheck to paycheck and barely getting by? The living wage. What kind of life are you living on the living wage? $23 an hour to $29 an hour. $26.50 in Calgary, kind of right there in the middle. 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. And if you've never called before, just mention that. We will make your call a priority. Love to hear from you today. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So our topic today, and lots of lines available, 1-833-668-2577. Our topic today, living wage. The living wage. Not the minimum wage, but the living wage. According to groups that calculate the living wage in Canada, they vary from one part of the country to another. For example, in the Kitchener area, $23 an hour. In the Calgary area, $26.50 an hour. In the city of Calgary, $26.50 an hour. And in Halifax, what is going on in Halifax? Really curious why the living wage is so much higher than it would be, in a fast-growing area like Southern Ontario, Kitchener, Waterloo area, $23 an hour there, but $29.40 in Halifax, for example, as a living wage, all of it after tax. So it translates into annual incomes of between, say, $42,000, $53,000 a year. What we want to know is, how would you describe the standard of living if you're making the living wage? Is it a comfortable standard of living? Is it a middle-class standard of living? Is it now, because of the situation with the cost of living, the cost of housing, inflation, is it not quite middle class now, even at these levels? Is it paycheck to paycheck? Is it barely getting by? 1-833-668-2577. Again, 1-833-668-2577. Again, let me just break some of these numbers down for you. I'll use the Calgary example because it's so very thorough. From the Alberta Living Wage Network, how do these expenses line up with, say, the expenses in your own household? Are you even living this kind of life? Family of four, again, two 35-year-old parents and two young children, one 7 years old, one 3 years old. Both need childcare. Both of them parents working. Food, almost $16,000 a year. Almost $16,000 a year, $15,872. Clothing and footwear, $2,248 on clothing and footwear in the run of a year. Shelter, almost $26,000. $26,000. Transportation, more than $9,300, $93.45 a year. Childcare, major expense for those two young children, 7 years old, 3 years old, almost $13,000 a year. Healthcare costs, for some reason, included here at almost $4,000 a year, $3,895. Are you spending in your, family of four almost $3,900 a year in healthcare, tuition, $1,800? The Alberta Living Wage Network says it likes to include that, so one person in the household could be taking, one of the adults could be taking a continuing education course throughout the year to either maintain skills or upgrade skills in case of a job loss, about $1,800 a year. And then other household costs, which is sort of like everything else, your internet, your cell phone, those sorts of bills, furniture, personal care. And because the living wage is to include participating in the community, these are the costs related to participating in the community, going to a live sporting event. Maybe that's a hockey game or an NHL game, going to a performing arts event, going to see a play, going to a museum, taking part in a recreation program, maybe run by the municipality, and going out for movies every now and then. Buying books, and it also includes other fees. If you're paying a fee to your bank, if you pay for postage, if you make contributions to charity, those sorts of things. You need to buy new luggage. They even include that in there. You add all of that up under just the other category is more than $14,000. More than $14,000. And a rainy day fund, having a rainy day fund. It says in case someone loses a job and you need to replace somebody's wages for 2 weeks. Okay, you want to have 2 weeks of wages set aside. They calculate that to be about $3,450 or so, $3,450. So are you even providing these sorts of things for your family Do you have a contingency fund? Are you spending more than $14,000 a year on all these other costs? Are you participating in something like a continuing education program? Are you spending almost $4,000 a year in healthcare? Just how accurate are these numbers? Really, $26.50 an hour in Calgary, $29.40 an hour in Halifax, $23 an hour in Kitchener. 1-833-668-2577, and have your say and share your opinion here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
All right, let's go to Halifax today on Talkback and talk about the living wage with, is it Alberta in Halifax? Oh, Albert. Okay. Yeah, let's try Albert. Hi, Albert.
Yes, it's Albert
Hi,
here.
Albert. Hi, Albert. Yeah, good to hear from you. $29.40 an hour in Halifax.
Rob, there's one thing you've got to understand, and I know you do this, but I want to bring it up. No matter what money the average person is making in Halifax or anywhere, it's the money that they're spending. If nobody had a credit card in their pocket, and many people have more than one, I met a woman that lost her credit card folder opened up, and it went down about 3 feet to the floor with credit cards in it. If they didn't have any credit cards like we did back in time, people would not be in debt up to their ears right now, and they wouldn't be spending the money that they're spending now. And you know as well as I do that the average family in Halifax or anywhere, not counting their mortgage payment and not counting their car payments, almost over $25,000 on their credit card. Now, the problem with that is if the government would make the credit people stop making these people keep using their credit card, I think it would help tremendously. But I think people are spending more than they really are making, and it's because of the credit card.
Okay, it's not $25,000, and this comes right from TransUnion, the credit rating agency, in a recent report that it did, said the average Canadian is carrying a credit card balance of just shy of $5,000, about $4,500 or so. But it's up 7% from last year.
Isn't that funny that I remember them talking about it one day on the radio, and they were showing it at $25,000, and that wasn't counting the car payment or the mortgage payment. And so, you see, Rob, the trouble with credit cards is as long as you make a payment of some kind towards it, they let you use it. And that's
sure,
the wrong way of helping people. And I think there should be a limit of how much people can spend on their credit cards without paying it down. And that's my theory.
But so are you saying if there is a cost of living crunch right now and so many people are having such a hard time, it's because of the availability, they're just using credit cards too often?
I think that's the way it's going. Yes, I do.
You think that's the way it's going? Yeah. Okay.
If you go into any store or any establishment that are in the retail section, you'll never see anybody paying cash. It's all on credit, every bit of it. Now, how much they're paying off on that every month? With me, you know what I do with my credit? I have one credit card, a Visa card, and every month before I spend another cent, I make sure that I pay it off
in full.
And to get rid of
you
it.
Pay
now,
off the
I'm
whole
fortunate
balance.
enough that I'm able to
good
do.
For you.
I'm fortunate enough that I'm that I have the money to do that. But most people are spending more than I had a man working for me, Rob, one time, and he used to make a certain amount of money that I knew what he made. He used to spend well over that limit that what he was making. He was actually bankrupt, but he kept spending the money.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Again, who would know better than TransUnion? I mean, they have everyone's information. It's the credit rating agency, for crying out loud. It says the average balance is about $4,500. It's still up from last year. As I say, it's up about 7%. Wealth Simple has a different number, a little bit higher, but in the neighborhood. Average credit card balance in the country, $4,787. And in total, balances outstanding on Canadian credit cards, $124 billion, up 9% in the last year, with half of the people with credit cards carrying a balance month after month. Unlike Albert, who pays the balance off in full after the end of every month. That's one angle we can look at it.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
When you hear these numbers, $23 an hour in Kitchener, $26.50 an hour in Calgary, $29.40 in Halifax, $29.40 an hour in Halifax. These are what the anti-poverty groups are calling the living wage, to live modestly in Canada. We want to know, are they on the right track? And what kind of life are you living on a living wage these days? Is it a comfortable life? Is it a modest life? Is it a middle-class life? Not quite, missing it by a mile. Give us a sense of it. 1-833-668-2577. I find this interesting right now because cost of living issues are so dominant for so many people. These reports are very timely when they come out. $23 an hour Kitchener, $26.50 an hour in Calgary, $29.40 in Halifax. All after tax, I should say, which is an important detail to mention. 1-833-668-2577. Jerry is in Waterloo. Hi, Jerry. Up next, Jerry. Hi, Jerry.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Jerry. Yeah, I hear you just fine. Jerry, go ahead.
Good.
Very good.
Thank you. Just commenting on the last caller there. It's unfortunately we've got an entire country living on a credit card right now, or has been for the last number of years. But I think unfortunately credit cards have become a bit of a scapegoat for us rather than I guess a convenience. But it'd be interesting to see what things would be like if we didn't have them to rely on right now. And unfortunately, I think we've had to. But to get back to the living wage, and I've thought about this. I mean, I've been hearing about it for quite some time, and I'm not sure how they come up with that number specifically. And bear with me. So, because I don't believe it's accurate. I think the number is likely higher because I live in Waterloo, the Kitchener area, so it's 23 and change. I'll be honest, the Halifax number definitely caught me off guard. I would have thought it would have been a lot lower, but obviously there's got to be a shortage of housing there, and I'm sure the rents and that definitely has impacted that. But so this 23 and change, it's based on the current cost of everything the way it is today, I'm assuming, and I could be wrong. So that's based on minimum wage where it is, all these things. So if these groups want to give everybody to this living wage of 23 and change, then I'd say, well, wouldn't that increase the base cost of labor, at your movie theaters, in your grocery stores, your gas pumps? Let's face it, there's a lot of people work in the service industry that work at
sure.
And there's a lot of other wages between that 23 and the minimum wage in Ontario. I think it's $17.60. So if we got everybody to that, which they want, then I would say the living wage would then have to be substantially higher because your base wage is this. And then to achieve it, everything has to come up to match that. I don't know.
And then what's a Big Mac combo? Yeah, sure. And then what is a Big Mac combo costing you at McDonald's, right? If people have to make $23 an hour, for example, I would note some of the fast food places around here are advertising hourly wages that are pretty close to that already. This is what it says the living wage is supposed to be. It considers, and I'm quoting here, the hourly rate of pay needed for each household to maintain a modest standard of living once government transfers have been added. So that would be things like GST rebate checks, childcare checks, any kind of benefit that people would get from the government. So once they've been added, and then it says, and taxes have been subtracted. Now, I would note they don't include like all the taxes, like sales taxes are not in here, for example, excise taxes, sin taxes, and the like, just federal income tax, provincial income tax, CPP contributions, and your EI premiums. Okay, just those 4 deductions that everybody has on their paycheck. And it's a family of 4, 2 parents, 35 years old, and 2 young children, 7 years old and 3 years old. So they need childcare. That's what they include. That's what they make. That's what goes into it.
My question is, that's a very, I guess, so 23 and change, that's kind of a misleading number if you say after taxes. So then you can say 22% on average. So you're saying that person needs to be making almost $28 an hour, really, is what they're saying.
Yeah, maybe closer to 30.
And those,
yeah,
$28, $29. By the time you pay that, to be able to be left with 23, then to go back and spend more and pay taxes. And then the benefits that we get, well, you've already paid for those. They're just giving them back to you. But I mean, it's. I don't disagree with.
Okay, but you're in Waterloo. You're in Waterloo, right? You're in Waterloo.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: You're in Waterloo. What kind of life can you have making $23 an hour in Waterloo? Say you and your partner, and you have 2 kids, and you're both making $23 an hour.
Not a very good one.
Not a very good one. Why is that?
Well, if you're making 23, so if you're taking home, so that's 46. You know, and you've said some of the numbers. You're spending how much in housing? How much? Like $16,000.
Each person it'd be about 42 grand for each person. So 84.
So $84,000. You know, you'd be doing okay. But again, are you renting? Do you have a mortgage? If you've just bought a house recently, well, you know what? A huge portion of that's just gone to your mortgage because you've. Unfortunately, anybody who's bought a house anywhere in this country in the last 4 to 5 years have technically overpaid for it because of the huge jack in the housing market. I mean, my home 4 years ago was supposedly worth $1.1 million. Now it's only worth $800,000. So there's over almost a 30% drop in housing. So mortgage, rent. You know, we're not horrible in rent. But
you're saying tight. It's tight. You're saying, right?
Yeah, and to go back and say, unfortunately, this is where people are now leaning on these credit cards, which we shouldn't have to be. But I think that's the problem. We've got it, and they're going to start leaning on it. And tomorrow it's going to be an interesting challenge.
Okay, thank you. Love the call. Thanks for calling, Jerry, in Waterloo with the Southern Ontario perspective. We've heard from Halifax, heard from Waterloo. Love to hear from you today on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Pat, who's in Kitchener on the living wage topic today. Hi, Pat.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good, Pat. Yeah, thanks for calling.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I would say that the living wage is probably just enough to cover your basic needs like food and clothes and transportation and things like this. You're 100% not living in the middle class, but you're also not living in poverty. So that's kind of my assessment. But I think the most important thing is that you live in a country that has the ingredients that allow you to make much more than your living wage. That's I think the focus that we should probably focus on as well.
Okay, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Explain that a little more for me.
Well, what I mean by that is we have a system that provides everyone an opportunity to make much more than $23 an hour. So, for example, my parents came here with 4 suitcases, not understanding the culture, not speaking the language, and they didn't have a penny to their name. And we were living, I would say, like in a 1-bedroom apartment. And for 20, 30 years, they had 2 or 3 jobs for most of their life. When I was 13, I had a job. When I was 16, I had a second job. Now I live comfortably in the middle class, but my parents were the sacrificial generation that gave me an opportunity to, invest in myself and get an education and get a good job. It wasn't easy. And so that's what I mean by the fact that we have an opportunity for upward social mobility in Canada, much more so than in any other country, I would say, or in most countries, let's say.
Right. So you see the country is still a land of opportunity. Do you think Canadians are taking advantage of the opportunities? Or is there a lack of that in the country, do you think? Or?
So I would say that no, there's still opportunity. There's still a lot of opportunity. That's why you have so many people trying to come to Canada and, for example, the U.S. Because in comparison to most of the world, like if you take the entire world actually and you look over the last 200 years, we're now living like kings. Like all of us are almost living like kings. So our progress as a world is dramatically improved over 200 years. For example, 79% of people lived in poverty 200 years ago. Today, it's under 9%. 43% of kids died under 5 years old. Now it's less than 4%. So there's a lot of data to back up the fact that.
But you said at $23 an hour, where you are in Kitchener's, you're barely getting by. At $23 an hour these days, you're just paying for the basics.
I would say that's right. I would say you're able to afford the basics. You're not building up generational wealth 100%, but you're not in poverty. So again, it's a hard problem to solve because you can't just increase minimum wage to solve the problem. They try to do that in California. To increase minimum wage for fast food restaurants, and a whole bunch of fast food restaurants either closed up or invested in automation. And so that's not necessarily the solution. The solution is to invest in yourself and make yourself more productive. You have to do a better job than an ATM machine, for example. If you work at a bank, you have to add more value to your clients than an ATM machine would add. And so that's kind of the idea behind making yourself more productive and more valuable.
Very interesting. Okay, thank you for your call. Let's go out to Calgary for the first time today. Hamad is in Calgary. Hi, Hamad. Okay, well, let's stop here then, and we'll come back and we'll continue our discussion on the living wage today. The living wage. How are you living if you're living on the living wage? $23 an hour on the low side in, say, the Kitchener-Waterloo area. $26.50 an hour in Calgary. $29.40 an hour is the calculation in Halifax, Nova Scotia. But what kind of life do you get for that kind of money? 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about all the news stories about the living wage. This is the time of year, usually around November. A lot of the living wage reports will come out from the living wage networks across the country. And what we've seen so far is that wages keep going up. These living wages up to $23 an hour in the Kitchener area. It used to be closer to $21 an hour, $26.50 now in the Calgary area, $29.40 in Halifax. What we want to get a better understanding of is the quality of life, the standard of living if you're trying to make a living on the living wage, and what that is like, why is it like that? 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Jay, is in Calgary. Hi, Jay. Thanks for calling, Jay.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good, Jay. Thank you. Oh, that's my emergency alert. Yeah, I hear you just fine, Jay. Go ahead. Thank you. I just got the emergency alert on my phone.
Oh, yeah, mine's going off to right now. Okay.
Sorry about that.
So no, it's all good. My comment here is I think that Canadians are a little too spoiled and entitled, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but we're in Calgary right now. $26.50 an hour is about $53,000 a year. That's not particularly hard to get a job in Calgary that pays $53,000 a year. Now, what is hard is you can't buy 2 boxes of smokes a week. You can't go out drinking with your buddies every week. You don't get a vacation twice a year. You have to live within your means. And that's why I say that people that complain about the living wage, you can survive off $53,000 a year in Calgary. You get a little house, you eat within your means, you don't go out, you save money, and you level up to the next job.
When you say you get a little house, when you say, if I could, you say get yourself a little house on $53,000 a year. How do you do that?
Rental. On
rent. Rental, you mean? Okay.
Yeah, a rental. Yeah, you won't be able to buy a house at $53,000, but you know what?
Right.
Over 10 to 15 years, you'll be able to save enough money for a down payment to be able to buy a home, a $300,000, $400,000 townhouse. But that's what you get with $53,000 a year. You're not going to get $1 million house, but you shouldn't have that expectation and then blame the federal government, blame society that you're not, living like a millionaire. Well, you make $53,000 a year, and that's just what it is. I think the previous caller, he hit it right on the mark. You have the opportunity to make more money in Canada more than in any other country in the world.
Okay. But you come back to this. If so many people are struggling and these reports come out and say, well, this is what the living wage is, and it's, this is how it compares to the minimum wage, and this is a sort of modest lifestyle you can expect on the living wage. It's because we live too extravagantly. We want too much. We like instant gratification. We live beyond our means. Our tastes are too expensive. We use credit too much. We had a caller suggest that. Is that what you're suggesting as well?
Absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong. There are circumstances where, sorry, some dickhead cut me off. There are circumstances in society, in life, where there's exploitation of workers, where the means of production, you might call it, sounds a little Marxist saying that, are not being paid out to the workers as they should. However, in most cases, I think that people are too spoiled. They want too many things all at once. They want to be able to work a job that's $26 an hour, but they want to live like they're making $50 an hour.
Okay, all right. That's an interesting way to do that. It's out there for public consumption now, and I hope we can pick up on that. It was on one of my topics that I wanted to come up with as well. Is it because of the modern Canadian lifestyle? If people are struggling on $23 to $29 an hour, is it because they want too much, or they're living too extravagantly, or they're living beyond their means? It's out there. And I thank you for raising it. It's something I was hoping we would get to today. It's been brought up, for example, with the use of credit cards and $4,500 balances on credit cards, for example. But thank you for your call today, Jay. 1-833-668-2577. We'll pick this up in hour number 2 of Talkback today. I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. We have been talking about all the reports about the living wage. And according to groups that calculate the living wage in Canada, they vary across the country. About $23, for example, in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. $26.50 an hour in the Calgary area. $29.40 an hour in Halifax. After benefits from the government and after taxes paid to the government, it all translate into annual incomes about $42,000 to $53,000 a year. We want you to describe how people are living on the living wage. What kind of life is that? Is it comfortable? Is it middle class? Is it paycheck to paycheck? Is it struggling? If so, why are people struggling? A number of callers in the first hour suggested, the people use credit too much, specifically credit cards, too much reliance on credit cards, or people aren't taking opportunities to get better jobs and earn higher incomes. And the previous caller, just before we broke in hour number one, said, we're spoiled. We've become spoiled and coddled, and we want too much and we live too extravagantly. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577 as we talk about today, the living wage. And there are 4 phone lines available, and we can come at it from any number of angles with your help. Danvir is up next. Hi, Danvir. Thanks for calling. What are your thoughts today?
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Danvir.
Okay, so just to start with the extravaganza, I don't think it's the problem in the last 2 years. The problem is the prices. So anything you go out buying is at least 70% higher. Like that's the minimum. So anything that was costing $4 is $7. Even like you go to fast food joints, like that's the minimum rise in price. That's the minimum, and it's above that, right? So that's like even the regular day-to-day things you just can't afford, and the wages can't keep up with that price hike. There's no way anybody would get a 70% hike, right? Unless you're in the government and you're striking. So,
well, good luck to them, I suppose. I haven't seen too many collective agreements that have 70% raises in them, not for lack of trying, perhaps. But you're saying it's a price issue. You're saying it's a price issue.
It's the price issue, and then we're blaming people that they're taking too much credit. But I blame Bank of Canada. So when they are manipulating the rate of interest, they are telling us to buy more when they are cutting it. Right? So
that may be your interpretation of it.
Like that's like why else would they cut the interest rate? What effect does it have? That's the effect, that buying power increasing. Buying power is not increasing. The money supply is increasing. The money supply is creating the buying power, right?
Well, yeah, I guess borrowing is becoming more attractive over saving every time the Bank of Canada cuts interest rates, right?
Yeah, like that's only as per the investor, the stock investor scenario. But for the common man, they are telling us to take more credit. Like investors are not the people of Canada, right? They are part of it.
Right.
Right? So we cannot base our policy on a small percentage and expect the masses to benefit. So, like, I totally don't agree with their cutting the rate of interest, like, rapidly. They need to, I think, stand back unless the prices stabilize. They're not letting the prices stabilize. The inflation is just a price hike from yesterday. It's not from 3 years back when when we are comparing the wages from. So it's a lot different scenario.
Okay. So, for example, the inflation report just came out earlier this week, and it said annualized inflation is running at 2.2%. What do you think of that number? Because that sounds like a great number.
From a year before, when it was already so high, not from 4 years before when it started getting up.
Yeah.
Right. It's still 70% higher. That's where the price difference is.
Right. You would say, well, what does the inflation rate say? What does the inflation rate say compounded between, say, the start of the pandemic to now? What's that number?
Yeah.
Because that's a lot higher than 2.2%, right?
Yeah, like that's the number they need to put light on. Like they always delay, like prices. This is a market economy, right? North America. So they would not take action until the investors get out with their profits. They'll delay it all the time. They'll delay it all the time. You can take a look back 10 years, 20 years. They'll always delay until their friends get out of it.
Okay, well, that's a little bit out. I guess what I want to get at, 20. You're in Calgary, yes, yeah, you're in Calgary. So at 26.50 an hour, if you have two parents with two children, two young children, say 7 years old, 3 years old, and you have two parents, they're both making 26.50 an hour. What kind of quality of life do they have? Are they living comfortably, or are they still barely getting by on that kind of money?
They could, but I'm not even making that because I'm a small business owner, right? So I am actually losing. I'm not making my wage. If I work for somebody, I'll make more.
Okay. All right. Good to hear from you. You've got us off to a good start here in hour number 2. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. 1-833-668-2577. You consider the backdrop for these living wage reports coming at a time when top of mind for so many people is the cost of living, whether that's food prices or shelter prices. You have cities declaring food insecurity emergencies. All of these things. With a living wage. What kind of life are you living with a living wage? 1-833-668-2577. And why is it like that? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And we've been talking about the living wage today, all these reports about the minimum wage. These reports come out from these agencies every year around this time of year. This is what it takes to have a living wage. And it's usually compared to the minimum wage. The two are not the same, but it's designed to, compare and certainly contrast. This is what many Canadians are earning when they're earning the minimum wage, and this is what it actually takes to live even a modest life. The backdrop, as I say, is a cost of living crisis and a cost of living situation in this country that is so top of mind for so many people. I mean, you just read the news on any given day. The inflation report came out the other day. Food prices were up again. Meat, like especially beef. Beef is becoming increasingly a luxury item for a lot of people. Beef prices were up close to 14% again. We see these reports from the food bank across the food banks across the country. Food bank use continues to rise. It's up 40% or so in the last 2 years. We talked a few weeks ago, the largest food bank in Toronto, 4 million visits this year, double the number of visits from 2 years ago. You have municipalities in Ontario like Brockville, Kingston, Aurelia. These are municipalities where the situation is so dire, they've actually declared food insecurity emergencies. And on the housing front, I mean, in some places, housing prices are coming down, and we have seen, in some big cities, rents have softened somewhat, but even the most recent inflation report said rental costs were up, I think it was close to 5%, 4.8% or so, and overall shelter costs were up better than 2%. Mortgage interest costs at a time when CMHC says, this is a country that needs to be building 500,000 homes a year, every year for the foreseeable future to bring housing costs down. And yet it's been a very difficult year for housing construction. And I mean, report after report after report about how difficult it's becoming for so many people. More and more Canadians living paycheck to paycheck. A recent survey by Harris and Partners said almost 90% of Canadians say they're living paycheck to paycheck, and 77% said if they had to come up with an extra $500 in case of an emergency, they would be hard pressed to do it. $500 for an emergency. They would be hard pressed to do it. 80% say, I have no savings. No savings at all. 80%. H&R Block, 85% of Canadians view living paycheck to paycheck as normal and have said they would have to go into debt if they faced an emergency. and said they wouldn't be able to pay their bills if their paycheck was late or delayed. And a quarter of Canadians said they were just 3 weeks away from being out of money. 3 weeks. And we see evidence. More and more Canadians going deeper into debt just to pay for basics like food and heating bills. 60% using credit cards to pay for groceries, to pay a utility bill. There's a money management firm. This is really hitting young people the hardest. People in their 20s, Gen Z. Almost a third said their financial situation is in, quote, free fall. Free fall. And that they don't splurge. They don't spend money on luxuries. They only spend money on the basics because they say the basics is all they can afford. Precarity is a word I'm hearing more and more often. Precarity. David Coletto, the CEO of Abacus Data, he keeps writing about this in his polls and in his surveys and in his opinion pieces in the papers. He talks about precarity and how this is the issue of our time right now in Canada. Precarity on the rise. People feel as though life is precarious, that their employment situation is precarious, or their housing situation is precarious, and their overall financial situation is precarious. Precarious. In other words, unstable. Unstable. They're on the edge, and they're filled with anxiety because of the instability in life, the lack of security, the housing situation that's not stable, the financial situation that is not stable. And at the heart of all of this is the cost of living and an affordability crisis. So that's kind of the backdrop for this year's crop of living wage reports. $23 an hour in Kitchener, $26.50 an hour in Calgary, $29.40 in Halifax, just to live a modest life, according to the living wage agencies. Is it a modest life? Is it a comfortable life? Is it a paycheck-to-paycheck life? Or is it a barely getting by life? 1-833-668-2577 to have your say and join the discussion today here on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
One of our callers on the living wage issue today, Jay, suggested we're too extravagant and we want too much out of the modern Canadian lifestyle. I mean, is that part of it? We just want too much. We live too extravagantly. We live beyond our means. We don't need all the stuff that we want. Another caller suggested we use credit too much. I mentioned TransUnion. If anyone would know, it will be TransUnion, the big credit rating agency, says the average Canadian's carrying a credit card balance these days just shy of $5,000, about $4,500 or so. And collectively, Canadians owe $124 billion on credit cards. And again, it's up 9% in the last year. That's the worrying trend. That's what concerns people. It's up 9% in a year. And then car loans, average balance on a car loan these days, again, TransUnion number, about $22,000. And the terms are longer than they've traditionally been. Who's paying off a car in 4 years now? It's like 84 months is not unusual these days, right? 6 to 7 years. Equifax, which is, of course, the other big credit rating agency, has been highlighting just how stressed some people are with their household budgets because of all of this personal debt. It said in its recent report, 1.3 million Canadians missed a credit payment in the most recent period for which it has data. 1.3 million. And again, an increase over last year. 1.3 million Canadians missed a monthly payment on a credit facilities. Now that's 1 in 22. It's still a fairly small number, 1 in 22 Canadians with a credit file, but last year it was 1 in 28. Missed a payment on some type of credit account. This year, 1 in 22. It's an increase of 10%. So it's a troubling trend, is it not? Credit debt up, missed payments up, total non-mortgage debt up about $800 in the last year or so, and total consumer debt $2.4 trillion, which is bigger than the entire GDP of the country. But we've heard it from some callers today. We like having stuff. We like having stuff. We don't like FOMO. Fear of missing out. FOMO, fear of missing out. There was a report from an organization called Payments Canada, works with all the big financial players in the country, helps facilitate payments in Canada. It had a report not that long ago looking at trends. How do people pay for things these days? It said that two of the fastest growing trends for Canadians purchasing things is BNPL. BNPL, buy now, pay later. In other words, installment plans. Among the fastest growing payment methods in Canada. Buy now, pay later. Especially popular among younger people. Use that method to pay for things like electronics, clothing, travel. Buy now, pay later. Now, some of those plans don't have interest, especially if the payments are spread out over a rather short period of time, but they will accumulate interest if they're spread out over several months. Sometimes you can spread them out over even years, with interest rates as high as 30%. But the case is made by some, and it's been made today, one of the reasons we're in this cost of living crisis because it's our fault. And that our parents and grandparents lived much more modestly. They didn't live this way. They lived more frugally. They didn't do buy now, pay later. They didn't do that. Maybe they had layaway plans. Pay now, get later, or paid with cash, and they didn't live beyond their means. I don't know if there's anything to that. You may know more than I do. But is that why people are saying these living wages have to be $23, $24, $26, $29 an hour in a city like Halifax? Is it because we just want too much stuff? 1-833-668-2577.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Where we have been talking about the living wage today. Various groups calculate what the living wage is in various Canadian cities. I've mentioned $23 an hour, this year's number in the Kitchener area. Up to $29.40 in the Halifax area, $29.40 an hour to $26.50 an hour in Calgary, right in the city of Calgary. It does it for a number of Alberta municipalities. I think I ran them down for you earlier. Lethbridge, $22.30 an hour. Airdrie, $29 an hour on the high side. In Airdrie, $23.40 an hour. High River, but as low as $22.30 in Edmonton, but in Calgary, $26.50 an hour. That's a 35-hour work week. It's on an annual basis about $48,000 a year. But what kind of life are you living on $48,000 a year in Calgary or in Lethbridge, for that matter, where I mentioned the living wage $22.30 an hour? Let's go to Lethbridge right now. Ron is there. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, Ron. Yeah, nice to hear from you today. What would you say?
Good. Well, I kind of agree with the caller you had just before noon. There is people are, I wouldn't say they're spoiled. I think, but they are somewhat spoiled. I think people just don't live within their means. I know things are expensive, but I think people really lack education. When's the last time you ever heard a student say that teachers were teaching them how to budget or to learn how to plan or how to save?
Okay. Okay.
And I guess it depends on the parents, because we're not getting that in our education system, I don't think. And I just think the basic living skills are missing in education and in society.
So you think part of the issue here may be financial literacy?
Yep, a huge part.
Okay.
a huge part.
Because as part of the Ontario, if I could, part of the Ontario curriculum now is going to include courses on financial literacy in the public school curriculum.
That's good.
You think that's a good step in the right direction?
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I was just going to say my late wife worked in at the university, and at a number of years ago when we were, paying a mortgage off, and we were doing a number of other things, and her colleagues always wondered how we did it. Most of them were renting. Nobody owned a home. And, sometimes it's just little things. She would ask them, where did you get that coffee before you came to work? Well, I bought it at Starbucks at $5 a cup. Well, where'd you get your sandwich from? Oh, I bought that at the food court. And she would make coffee every morning and take a coffee with her and pack a sandwich. She was living basically on pennies, and they were spending dollars, hand over fist. And sometimes it's the little things, it's conveniences that we pay for. And at the end of the month, you wonder where all your money's gone.
Sure.
And we definitely pay for, and I think that's the way society's set up nowadays. There's a drive-through every half a block, and people are. I'm nothing against restaurants or anything, but you're paying dearly for something you can do on your own. That's just an example. And I think the government wants us to, especially the current government, wants us to live like this. They want us to be dependent on the government to provide things. So they'll just keep taxing us to death, and we just keep electing them, and they hire more bureaucrats, which is more votes for them, and we become more dependent. And
okay.
The old saying.
But you think part of the issue is we've kind of created this society of convenience that I guess would be one way I would describe it.
Yep, and we got to have it now.
Got to have it now. Right.
Yeah. If you borrow money for something that will pay itself off, like if you borrow money for a vehicle that's taking you to work, to a good job, that's money well spent. But if you borrow money to buy a bigger TV, that's totally ludicrous, because you're losing on both ends that way. It's just, but we live in a society nowadays. You have to keep up with the Joneses. You need this and you need that, and I think people get sucked into the whole thing, and then they wonder why they can't afford anything.
Yeah, as I said, one of the most popular ways for people to pay bill: buy now, pay later. Buy now, pay later.
Exactly.
The agencies that actually collect the data on how people are paying for stuff say that's one of the fastest growing ways people are, especially young people, are choosing to pay for things now. Is buy now, pay later. You see that. I don't know how much online shopping you do. You see that when, say, you go onto Amazon and you buy something on Amazon, it'll say, well, you could spread this out over, so many payments or whatever. Yeah. And you look at those payments and they're so small, and the actual cost of the item is so big, and you really want the thing. So it's very tempting, right? It's very tempting.
And you're getting 2% interest on your money at the bank, and you're paying 20% interest on your loan to the credit card company.
Sure. Yeah.
Or more.
Okay. All great points. Yeah. Okay. So you think there is something to that? The need for, instant gratification, the need to be served right now, for life to be convenient. Very interesting. Thank you for your call today in Lethbridge, and thinks that more should be done in the schools about financial literacy. They're doing that in Ontario. I'm Rob Snow. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The living wage, $23 an hour in Kitchener, $26.50 in Calgary, $29.40 in Halifax. And I was doing some digging into how do they come up with these numbers? For example, a lot of people, I don't think they're aware, the numbers that are reported in these reports are all after tax. These reports come out from these agencies every year, and I don't think that is ever really highlighted as much as it should be, the fact that it's after tax, because just in my own opinion, I think that's a pretty important detail, given taxation rates in this country, before tax, after tax, it's not a small nuance. It's a pretty important detail. But all of the groups, and they coordinate on these reports. They call them living wage networks, after all. But for example, in Alberta, the Alberta Living Wage Network, I was leafing through the annual report today. This is how it says they arrive at the numbers. They say the living wage, quote, considers the hourly rate of pay needed for each household to maintain a modest standard of living once government transfers have been added and taxes have been subtracted. And it assumes each adult is working 35 hours a week. And then I was reading through how they calculate, shelter, food, what qualifies as other, because other expenses, in the Calgary circumstance, like $14,000 in just other. But using the family of four example, because they also do, single parent, single individual, but just the family of four example, 2 parents, both 35 years old, and 2 young children, a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. Shelter is described as a 3-bedroom rental apartment or a townhouse. Like, what is a 3-bedroom renting for in Calgary? Curtis, what would you say? You're going on the market looking for a 3-bedroom rental in Calgary. What's that running you?
I'd say
$3,000?
Yeah, 3
At
to 4.
least $3,000, you would have to think, right?
Yeah, 3 to 4.
Under food, maybe even 4,000 a month. Really? Wow. Or a townhouse. It says a townhouse. Shelter could be a rental townhouse as well. What are townhouses renting for in Calgary, would you say? Any idea?
Let's see. I don't know. I'd say probably
$3,000,
4.
$3,500.
Yeah.
4, closer to 4. Wow, big money, right?
I mean,
under
on the
food,
outskirts,
it says
17.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. It says food costs are based on Health Canada's 2019 National Nutritious Food Basket, a mix of fresh, frozen, and minimally processed foods. Ain't no bologna. That can be purchased at a full-service grocery store any time of year. Under transportation, this is what it uses. The average of a lower-cost 8-year-old hatchback truck or SUV expenses include maintenance, license, registration fees, insurance, monthly car payment, and, of course, fuel. Under childcare, it says the 3-year-old is assumed to need 12 months of full-time childcare. The 7-year-old needs 10 months of before and after school care and 2 months of full-time summer care or summer programs. Full-time. Clothing and footwear costs based on Statistics Canada's survey of household spending. Healthcare. I mean, the healthcare costs in this report are quite substantial. I don't know why they're included. For example, in Calgary, $3,900. And I was curious, well, what family of four is paying $3,900 in healthcare costs? They say it's the premiums for a personal Alberta Blue Cross plan. $3,900. Tuition, which is close to $1,800 for the year, is for one adult to be enrolled in a continuing education program year-round at a local community college. And then under Other, it lists a cell phone plan with unlimited talk and text, at least 5 gigs of data. Household supplies include furniture, furnishings, electrical appliances, personal care products, pharmaceutical products, home entertainment, sports and recreation, including live sporting events, live performing arts, museums, bicycles, sports rec facilities, and movies and theaters. And under contingency fund, and the contingency fund here is $3,450, just the rainy day fund. That is money set aside for 2 weeks' pay in case expenses need to be covered when unexpected situations happen. And you hear these reports from time to time. I'm 500, such and such a percentage of the population is $500 away from going broke. And as I said, when they come up with these numbers, they include all the payments that this typical Canadian beautiful family of four would receive from the government and all the taxes it would pay to the government. Think GST rebate checks, if they qualified childcare checks in Alberta, childcare subsidies, and any payment from the federal government or the provincial governments, and then all the payments that everybody makes to the government, although they only include 4: federal and provincial income tax, CPP contributions, and and EI premiums. Expenses, benefits, taxes, they punch it all. They do the math. These are the numbers they come up with. $29.40 in Halifax, $23 an hour in Kitchener, $26.50 an hour in Calgary. That's what they call the living wage. Well, what kind of life are you living on the living wage? 1-833-668-2577 on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we have been wondering what kind of life you can live on the living wage, and why is it like that? 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Sandy's up next. Hi, Sandy. Thanks for calling.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome, Sandy. Thank you for calling today. What would you say?
I'm calling from Calgary, and I live frugally.
And what does that mean, you live frugally? What does that mean?
Well, for example, I just bought a salad package from a store that's under $3, and it would probably feed 4.
Wow. That sounds like a screaming deal.
Because sometimes they have them on sale, I have discovered. And anyway, my cell phone bill is $36.70 a month, and
that's pretty good.
my computer just crashed, and I seem to have lucked out. I've taken it to a store. I think they're going to be able to replace the battery for $90.
Well, that sure beats having to buy a new computer for several $100s.
Yeah, and so I'm not 70. I don't want to take my CPP or OAS until I'm 70, and when if that's how it works out, then it's going to be more money than including the GIS right now.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
I'm
so
lucky.
do you
I
think,
worked
you know,
hard
it's sorry, Sandy, it's been raised, some people just live too extravagantly. What do you think about that? Maybe people should live more frugally like you do. Buy, salads that are going for $3 at the grocery store, for example.
If I had the money, I would live, more extravagantly, but
Sure.
I don't. I worked hard to pay off my house, and I discovered that I could cut the amortization period when I renewed my mortgage. And so I was able to pay off, I cut it by 5 years. The payments did increase a little bit, and I had to work hard to, and save hard to pay for the extra payments. But then my mortgage was paid off 5 years earlier, so I was really happy about that.
Well, you sound very disciplined.
I try, and then also, like I do some legal work, so I'm not a lawyer. And so I know that weekly payments on a mortgage are, because when you talk about compound interest, it's brutal.
Oh, sure.
So
yeah.
I think I paid weekly mortgage payments.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. Yeah. I mean, the compound interest, it can be brutal or it can be beneficial. I suppose it just depends on, what side of the ledger you're on or what side of life you're on, right?
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to sort of live healthy, live well, be frugal, but not stingy. I think it's a balance, that type of thing.
Yeah, very good.
So
very good.
I'm
Thank
on
you.
EI, and I'm.
Oh, you're on EI.
I'm on EI because I still want to work until I'm 70. I haven't found a job, and I've talked with EI a few times, and you can do a little bit of work on the side plus be on EI, and they have a lot of benefits when you're on EI that that you can get so they can help you find a job.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, very practical advice. Thank you for all your calls today. Brand new topic tomorrow. And more of your calls and always the latest breaking news on News Radio.